Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Stryd webinar. As always, my name is Evan. I'm your host for the show. Today, we're going to be talking about Stryd analysis and metrics, a closer look at the Stryd training ecosystem. This last week and all of this week, we've been talking about different features in our latest software release, and we're really excited to talk more about analysis and metrics, specifically the post-run experience on the Stryd iOS mobile app. Let's get into it. Starting off, if you are watching live right now, we would appreciate if you're watching live on YouTube to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can press the thumbs up like button. It helps the video get found by other people that might want to watch it that don't know about it already. And you can also press the subscribe button to keep up to date on all of these videos that we are putting out. If you're watching on our Facebook community, you can feel free to leave a like there as well, and go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We're looking forward to bringing more content like this to you, every week, every day that we possibly can. So, couple topics we're going to talk about. Specifically, we're going to start with metrics. Metrics, plus a few new ones. This was something we haven't really talked about too much, but we did release a couple new metrics in the post-run experience on the Stryd mobile app and Stryd Power Center. Talking about the metrics that you're used to and starting from the top, power. Then we have form power, air power, which is dependent on the device that you have. Pace, cadence, leg spring, stiffness, ground contact time, vertical oscillation, elevation, and heart rate. These are all metrics that you should know if you have been using Stryd. And we have a couple new ones that we'll talk about a little later on in this metrics section and explain them a little bit more specifically. So let's start with power. It's obviously usually one of the first ones that we do take a look at. Power is the mechanical measure of running effort and intensity. It's displayed in watts, capital W. We typically recommend comparing by watts per kilogram if we are comparing across different runners. This view on the right side through all of these slides is going to be the specific post-run view that you have when you click into each of these metrics here. So this metric list will appear on every post-run section on your Stryd mobile device. You can click this small right arrow and you'll be brought to all of these screens. This screen specifically for power shows your average power, and the average elevation is always going to be something persistent in the background to help remind you where you were on the run. You can see the time on the x-axis and the watts on the y-axis going up and down. You'll have a solid white line tracing the average through that lap. So this is actually a really cool feature to help you visualize how much you're spiking above and below for any of these metrics during your run. We also have a summary section, again, where we will show you, that specific metric, the average, the minimum, the maximum, and to also give you a definition, just in case you might not remember the exact definition of the metric that we're talking about. So starting off with power, again, it's the mechanical measure of running effort and intensity displayed in watts, capital W. You can compare it across different runners by watts per kilogram. Next metric we're going to talk about is form power. It's the portion of overall power that's being used to move you vertically. It's displayed in watts, again, capital W, and we typically recommend comparing form power ratio. Again, we have the same display here where we see the little bit lighter yellow line on the graph specifically, and again, that white horizontal line is tracing the average for that lap. So it just gives you a little bit better insight into the peaks and valleys specifically for this metric over the course of each lap. The next metric, again, power related, is air power. And again, this is device dependent. And so this is, required you have to have the latest Stryd to get air power, and it's the extra power needed to overcome air resistance, again, depending on which version Stryd you're using, and it's displayed in percentage. The raw watts for overcoming air resistance don't necessarily matter. The percentage is the more important thing. And it's displayed in a pretty interesting way. Again, I mentioned percentage, but you can see the spikes up and down. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can use some of these metrics together. But for air power specifically, it's always really interesting to remember back where you were on your run and see these peaks and valleys, and specifically remember the sections where it was windy. Stryd metrics, again, pace. Pace is the time it takes to cover a standard unit of distance. It's displayed in minutes per mile or minutes per kilometer. And in our ecosystem, it is a medium to light blue line. Again, we have the average pace and that white line, again, tracing through the average for all of these metrics. The next one that you'll be familiar with is cadence, which is the number of steps a runner takes per minute. It's displayed in steps per minute, or SPM. And this is one that there's not a lot of variability to. Typically, we'll see most people between 150 all the way up to about 200. But really, for each runner, there isn't a ton of variety unless the grade you're running on is changing in an extreme way, or the speed you're running and the power you're outputting changes in a semi-extreme way. Usually people have a pretty narrow band, but it's interesting to see how your cadence reacts when you do increase your power, increase your pace, you run uphill or you run downhill. It is really an interesting metric to look along in that accordance. Also, semi-interesting if you're doing a time trial effort or a race effort, looking at how cadence changes over the course of that. And this is another thing that this horizontal white average line will show you, is the average over the course of the lap. Next one is leg spring stiffness, and we have talked about all the metrics either on our podcast or different webinars that we've done, different blog posts that we've done, and this is always one that a lot of people look at and they might be scared of. They don't really understand it, don't understand how to use it. This is really, when it comes down to it, there's a couple things to know about leg spring stiffness, but the main point being that it's the theoretical stiffness of the leg while running. If you're assuming that the leg is a spring and you're taking your body and you're compressing that spring a certain distance. And so, again, we have full definitions in the app. If you ever are curious and you're checking out leg spring stiffness, or LSS as it's abbreviated, it's displayed in kilonewtons per meter. And we typically recommend following a trend over time and comparing as similar variables as possible. So, comparing like speeds, like powers, like grades, we typically recommend comparing as similar variables as you possibly can. The next one is ground contact time, and this is the time the foot is on the ground each stride. It's displayed in milliseconds. This one usually reacts to changes, again, in pace and power, as well as different grades that you are running on. Vertical oscillation is the amount of vertical movement while running. It's displayed in centimeters. We do have a little bit more expansive definitions in the app if you are curious for a little bit more context. We're not going to go into all of those now, but that is definitely something to check out if you ever are looking at your specific metrics and kind of curious about what does it actually mean. We do always recommend looking at that summary section there. The next one is elevation, and this will be elevation above sea level. It's displayed in feet or meters, depending on what your preference is. We'll have an average elevation as well as the minimum and maximum elevation. So this one's pretty standard. A lot of people, if you use another sports wearable to track, you'll typically see elevation on that side as well. So it shouldn't be necessarily anything super new to you. The new metrics, though, that we introduced in this release are stride length, grade, and form power ratio. Let's talk about stride length first. It's the distance covered of the stride measured from one foot until that same foot touches the ground. So you're going through a full stride. It's displayed in meters. So we can see in the example here that the average stride length was 1.27 meters, and we can see a minimum and maximum. We can also click in on the graph, and this is something that we'll talk about a little bit later, but you can always interact with these graphs. You should be used to pressing, holding, and being able to swipe side to side and scrub through the graph. This data on the top where it says average stride length, it'll actually change as you are pressing and you're moving over these types of graphs. Next one is grade, and grade is the slope of the surface being run on, and it's displayed in a percentage. So again, we'll be able to see the minimum, the maximum, and the average. And this is something that might be more useful to people training for a specific race. If you're trying to simulate the grade of a hill that you're going to run on race day, you want to find a specific section, in an area local to you and practice hill repeats up it or incorporate certain types of grades in your training. This is a great way to look at specific sections and be able to identify the grades there. And the last one that's new is form power ratio. Again, we mentioned form power is a little bit more useful when you look at form power ratio, and form power ratio is taking form power and comparing it to your total power. It's displayed as a number from 0.01 up to 1.0, but you'll typically see it in numbers typically between, I'll probably say 0.14, 0.15, all the way up to 0.35, 0.4. Those are, the pretty big bounds there. Again, this is something that does change based on speed, grade, obviously power. So this is something that gives you a little bit more fine-grained analysis on top of the power metric. Like air power is used on top of the power metric, form power ratio shows you some other data specifically about the relationship of your power to your form power. So very interesting, but this was the third new metric in this release along with stride length and grade. Let's talk about the split view, and this is for finding the sections that matter in your post-workout view or your post-run view. You can scroll down on the normal post-run screen. So again, if you go after your run is uploaded, go to the calendar button, the calendar page in your Stryd mobile app. You can click on an activity. Always remember to tag your activities. Yesterday's webinar talking about insights, again, talked all about how important it is to tag your activities. You can make sure to click on that after you've tagged, and then scroll down past the first graph that you're dropped into. You'll see the split view. So this is an interactive list of splits. You'll have the number split, S, and then a colon, and then a number. On the very far left, you'll have time and distance. So you'll have the time of the split, and then the distance of the split on the left side as well. You'll have your metric average on the right side. And as we followed along with some of the kind of standard design, you'll see the minimum and maximum for that split as well. And you can click the rightmost arrow to go in depth on that specific split. So this is a scrollable page. You can scroll up and down. And you should also know that you can press the upper right corner to choose between manual laps or distance laps. So if you take manual laps, or let's say, if you're like myself, you really just run for a average on a long run and you don't really look at the mile splits, you can press the distance and it'll switch it to whatever unit you have as your preference. So we like to give you some flexibility there. And this split view, you can press, again, the three dots in the upper right corner, and you'll be able to select between manual and distance splits. You can also use the split view to see the differences between repeats. You can swipe on the graph to show the map of where that specific split was. And this is a workout that I actually did yesterday. It was two about 3 mile loops. We can see the distance is 2.95 miles and 2.94 miles. The idea was to run consistently for about 30 minutes, but each of these two loops I was going to get faster on the second one. So we can see specifically here for the first loop, it's a downhill followed by an uphill. I averaged 307 watts with a minimum power of 240 and a max power of 339. We can also see, comparing it to the next split, I have the idea that, oh, I ran 326 as opposed to 307. My average pace was about 20 seconds faster per mile. And we can use this split view to compare things side by side. And again, you can always press this plus over minus button here to add different things on the graph. So it'll default to showing power, but you can change it around however you'd like. You can always press on that graph, hold your finger down, and scrub side to side, and you'll be able to interact with that graph as well. So the split view lets you take multiple splits, look at one, go back, compare it to the next one. It's a great feature, and it really does open your eyes and give you a little bit more insight and information specifically into your running and those individual splits. Let's talk about the lap table now. This is something that we've actually had requested for a long time. This is a kind of normal default view on stryd.com/power center, is being able to view a lap table with your metrics. And we wanted to bring it to the mobile app in a way that didn't feel like it was the main focus, but it's there for the people that really want to view it. So in the lap table, you'll scroll past split view, as we can see the split table up here. And then you can press the blue View As table, and this is just above your metrics average section. Once you press that, it'll enable a scrollable table view of your data, and you can move your finger all the way through. You can view your distance, power, pace, cadence. You can choose all the metrics on here. And then the other thing is in the top right corner here, we have the 3 blue dots. You can press that to export it as a CSV if you would like, directly from the app. This was a feature we had requested for quite a while, but you can absolutely do that from the table view of your data. Let's talk about some takeaways. Takeaway number 1 is be able to analyze and understand the metrics for each run. We have definitions provided for each of the metrics that are in the Stryd app, and you'll also find those on stryd.com/power center. But the number 1 takeaway is being comfortable and being able to click on that specific metric section, analyze and understand each of the metrics for every single run. Takeaway number 2 is to use the split view for quick breakdowns. So you can easily see if you have a progression run and you're taking splits each mile or kilometer, you can easily see a high-level breakdown of the average power, of the time it took, the minimum and maximum powers for each of those splits, but you can always click through for more advanced analysis and a more advanced breakdown specifically for that split. And takeaway number 3 is to use the lap table for further analysis. We have export to CSV available right in the mobile app there for you. It's a great feature to be able to take a little bit closer look into your data and see everything stacked side to side and give you the flexibility and options to export your data if you wish to do so. You can get Stryd today. If you already don't have Stryd, you can go to store.stryd.com. And it is available now. This specific feature set we've been talking about, the metrics, all of the new metrics as well, this is available now. You can view the split view and the lap table specifically in the Stryd mobile app, and this is available now. It's been a huge part of this even bigger software release that we've had this past week, and we've been so excited to bring you different features last week and so far this week, and this is available now. I will flip back and see if we have any questions here. It looks like we have a couple that have come in, so do appreciate anybody asking questions right now. First question is, hello everyone, quick question. Do the training plans auto adjust my fitness based on what, let's say I'm aiming for a sub 20-minute 5K? Thanks, Mohammed. Thanks for the question, we appreciate it. As your fitness does improve, your critical power will update. So in the Stryd ecosystem, we do have auto calculated critical power, which we've talked about in a couple of past webinars. We have some great support documents on it as well. But as your fitness improves, as you show us different efforts at different durations and different power outputs, your critical power will adjust, and this will influence the specific workouts given and the ranges given on your plan. So it will adjust to your specific fitness, and you can always use the Stryd event calculator in your mobile app or stryd.com/powercenter for the race calculator to specifically put in a time goal. You can even put in a custom course if you want, and it will show you the current projection on that specific course for your current fitness. So it is a great A to Z experience training with power. There is another question here. It says, I see there's a note in the Stryd support indicating you're committed to bringing the iOS features that we see here today to Android. When can we expect the new metrics and analysis to arrive on that platform? Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we're excited to continue working on this, get you great features, including things like what we talked about in yesterday's webinar, the Insight webinar. We do have our mobile optimized power center that you can access from your Android phone. And we have recently committed more resources to strengthening the Android app development. So we're excited to keep rolling through that and bringing great updates very soon. In Garmin Connect, is it possible to set an intensity goal for a section of training? Intensity goals are pace, cadence. Is it somehow possible to set a power as intensity goal? So right now in Garmin, if you use their native workout builder, you cannot select power as one of the workout options to give you a specific intensity, but you can use the brand new Stryd app on Garmin with the workout function. So this is a major part of this release as well, is taking any of the native Stryd plans and having those sent to your watch in that specific app. It will give you specific workouts that you have taken either from the plan, or you can use a third party like Final Surge, Training Peaks, 2Peak. You can customize your own training and you can have that sent to your watch as well. So in the native Garmin ecosystem, it is not possible to program power as an intensity, but you can use the Stryd app on your Garmin Connect IQ 3.0 and above watch, and you can use that to structure your training. We have a question here from Scott. I purchased Stryd about 2 weeks ago. I've been finding the metrics interesting, but are there plans to add actionable insights based on a user's data and trends? Yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow, this is actually a great segue, and this will be a last call for any questions that people might have if you are watching live as well. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about trends. So this is the first step in providing more information about your own running data and your trends, is displaying this to you. So tomorrow's topic, it's going to be awesome. We're going to be showing all about trends using specific real data, helping you understand how to access the graphs and understand that data that you do see there. But this is absolutely in the plans to add actionable insights on the data that's presented. The first step, again, and this is part of this huge software release that we just released last week, but the first step is getting all of that out to you, and then the next step after that is providing great actionable insights based on your data. So I'll look for another round of questions. It doesn't look like we have any right now. If you're watching after the fact, please feel free to leave a comment, leave any questions you might have. We love to come back to these videos and answer any questions that anybody might have. You can also feel free to follow us on social media at Stryd Running. Like I mentioned, we'll be back tomorrow right here for tomorrow's topic about trends in the new mobile app, which I am super excited about because this is one of my favorite visualizations of data that I've seen on any running platform ever. And we're really excited to talk through it tomorrow. So without any other questions, we will wrap up for today, and we will see everyone